Hey folks, Scott from IT Rockstars. Welcome along to the show. This is the show where we interview IT providers, managed service providers, cybersecurity companies, technology companies, whatever you want to call yourself. And we interview other companies and we find out how they're growing their business. It's all about the marketing for IT companies. That's really what we do. And we're really trying to delve in deep to that. So recently, I wrote a book called Video Marketing for MSPs. It's the first time I've plugged it here on the socials and wherever you might be watching this. But I've been kind of looking out for people in the industry that are doing a really good job of video marketing, because I wanted to get them on the show and just speak about how they're doing it. And I spotted our guest here today on LinkedIn, came up on my radar. The videos that he's doing, they're really well put together. They look awesome. They're to the point. They've also got humor within them, and they absolutely do not bore. So welcome along, Chtistian Fleming from Northstar IT. Great to have you here. First question, why did you start doing video marketing?
Well, as a business owner, I've got to the stage where the business has grown to a point of where I don't do day-to-day operations anymore, and my role is evolving. And marketing is probably one of the growing areas that I'm responsible for within the business. And I was very much aware that I was going to have to do it. And I started off practicing a bit in the local park with my iPhone sort of held out in front of me. And for anyone who knows me knows how completely wobbly my hands are. So that was an immediate fail. And I'm very much the person, if you're going to do something, do it properly. And invested in something decent. And now I've got a kit list of, I think, about 12 different things I've invested in to do them, and just started with it and thought, well, I've got to start with something. And yeah, I just started the ball rolling. And after I tried again a few different spots outside. I got rather irritated with the random runner who always seemed to get in shot, or someone kicking around a football, and I think, how flaming big is this park? It was like, you got my tiny little corner that I picked and you've got to invade it. So it sort of came from there, but I'm not joking. I was petrified of doing it, and a few dips in toe in the water, and then just the usual excuse that every business owner will find themselves making: I'm too busy, I'm too busy, I'm too busy.
Yeah.
And then a pandemic came from nowhere, and my building was certainly at the beginning empty, and I thought, the excuse has sort of gone now. And I pitched the camera up in the corner of my support department, because that's got some fancy branding behind it with the company name on it, and just thought I'd have a go. And
Go for it, yeah.
And this week was episode 14. So 14 weeks down the line, they always say you're your own biggest critic, and I can't even recognize myself from episode 1. I think, oh my god. But I've gone from fear to enjoyment. I'm genuinely really enjoying doing them now. It's just more about coming up with the ideas and the props.
So what do you think the fear was that was going through your head? You know, was it the fact that you're putting these up to your sort of business network and you were appearing in front of the camera? Was there a reason for the fear?
I think no. I think there's always an element nobody likes to hear how they sound. I can certainly say I didn't particularly want to see what I looked like. And I don't mean as in looking in the mirror. I mean body language, voice, everything. And maybe part of it was actually said, I think you've got a bit of David Williams about you. I hope you don't mind me saying. And actually, I got to this point of thinking, hey, David Williams has made a huge career out of being slightly camp. If it works for him, bring it on.
Excellent. So there's definitely got the humor element in your videos as well, which I really, really like. So as I mentioned before we start recording here, is like, how do you come up with the scripts for your videos?
Well, there is no script. If anything, if there was a script, I'd probably be terrible at it,
Okay.
Anybody who knows me, other than the fact that they know I can talk the hind legs off a donkey, which will also explain why the first video that I think was about 2 minutes and 20 seconds long, after the sixth recording that I deleted and tried again, I think the original recording was about 5, maybe 6 minutes long, and the editor managed to slice it down to something more tolerable. But if I followed a script, I probably wouldn't. Some of the other vlogs I've seen of IT people doing them, they're sitting and you can see that they're following like an auto prompt on a
They're reading it
tablet.
line from line, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think it looks natural, or it almost makes it hard to watch. And so for me, I think if it's going to look natural and I'm going to feel comfortable doing it, I just need to ad lib and just.
You're kind of ad-libbing and then just editing as you go along. Is that how it works?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I'm not doing the editing.
Yeah.
I've got to give the credit to another company that does that for me, and they're a member of a network you've mentioned on one of your videos before of BNI, and
Oh, yeah.
they're a member of my chapter, and they're brilliant at what they do. And because of lockdown, they were looking to innovate about how they could continue working, and approached me because I'd mentioned I was going to be doing these, and put together a bit of a trial package. And it was as much a trial for them as it was for me.
Yeah.
And so I've got a bit of a good deal. And honestly, I think they're enjoying doing them more than I am, judging by some of the special effects they've been putting in. I almost get really excited to watch my own vlog because I want to see what they've come up with to jazz them up.
It's fantastic what they're doing with the effects, and they've just small little elements kind of just layered on top of each other. It looks really good. So that you mentioned BNI there, do you find that BNI, not so much the network, but the fact that you are a member in BNI and you're getting up and standing in front of a Zoom room just now, in front of people, do you think that that's helped you with the video at all? The ad-libbing?
Well, not anything to do with Zoom, but that was where I faced my first fear that led to facing the fear with the camera, was standing up in front of a group of people at BNI. I'd recently moved to Sussex. I grew up in Kent, and that's where I'd started the business. But I was finding every single day I was driving back to Kent or getting on a train and going to the middle of London. That wasn't quite the lifestyle I had in mind when I moved to the beach. So a friend of mine had been recommended to BNI, and they were doing a visitor day, and so I went along. But part of my fear of going and of joining was having to stand up in front of a group of business people, and talk. It was something that I had hands shaking like you wouldn't believe when I stood up there. But I knew I had to do it, and it was a fear I'd had for far too long, and it was time to deal with it. And so yeah, BNI has helped. Yeah. And they've certainly been really helpful in getting the promotion going, with getting on social media and commenting, liking, sharing. As I keep reminding them, likes are lovely, but sharing is caring.
Yeah, so it's a step in the right direction, and that network effect can help. So how do you come, because there's so many topics in technology, the list I think is endless. How do you choose your topics for the videos? Is it just something that comes up in your day-to-day that you're talking about? Or
okay, well, this is where my inner nerd is going to come out. I have a spreadsheet. Cool. First of all, I started it because I wanted an index of what I'd done. So, of course, once you do it, commit a year to it. So then you can monitor and measure whether it's actually generating some substantial leads and worth your time to continue going. But at least then commit a reasonable time frame to it. So I was also thinking, well, they always say about revisiting web pages and doing updates because that's great with Google. Well, I also thought, well, if I've got an index of what I've done, I can go back and review certain things and maybe update them. And obviously, one of the most appealing elements of working in the IT industry for me back in a long time ago that I'm not going to tell you how long.
Well, I see your 20-year anniversary came up last year.
It did, yeah, and I've worked in the industry a little longer before the company started. But put it this way, Windows was loaded by floppy disk when I started.
It's like
Um,
36 floppy disks, yeah.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I think it was 11,
Was it? Okay.
the first one, but it was still a lot. It was a long process to install Windows, but yeah, uh, I've got that index. I can go back to things. I can refresh it, and because of that appeal, the IT industry is evolving almost daily.
Yeah.
So having that index, I can go back. But what I'm doing is, as I'm thinking about it, is I'm now pitching ideas onto that list as well. So I've got the index that's been recorded, and then an ideas list that's building up underneath. And sometimes, and part of the benefit of lockdown, I see a bike in the background there, is I decided to leave my car at home and start cycling to the office. And I sort of justified still going to work during the lockdown because I was combining it with my daily allowance of exercise. I was just doing 23 miles of it a go. But there are moments that an idea just pops into my head, but I'm on my bike, and as a cyclist, you can relate to the fact that when you combine doing something that's quite intense, cardiovascular, dodging potholes, pedestrians, cars, your brain can wander a bit, but necessarily remembering that idea when you've arrived is something else. So with the wonders of these little gadgets, I send myself voice emails as a reminder of what I thought about when I'm cycling, and it's just it literally is that. It's random things, albeit an idea's come up, partially contributed by a colleague. Is I'm going to start not a call in. That's probably a bit cheesy, really, but send in a recording of a question, and whether it is a how to or what do you think of, and then we can jazz up a sort of hailing frequencies open in our Star Trekky type branding, play the recording, and then I'll work on answering it in hopefully an entertaining way. As to make the video successful, they've got to be educational, informative, and entertaining. And hopefully I'm doing that.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So that's that's how I come up with topics as well. It's usually when my best ideas come up when I'm on my bike. They just kind of pop. It's almost like I get a moment of clarity in my head, and they pop into my head. So you've been kind of, we're in I think month 5 of lockdown at this point. What lessons have you learned? What's your biggest lesson you've learned with video so far? I know it's been, you're kind of halfway through this journey. You mentioned you're going to be doing it for a year at least.
Yeah.
But what's the biggest lesson that you've learned with it so far?
God, that's a really hard one. I think one of them would be on the equipment side. I've got a kit list. It's going to sound really daft, but the tripod that I bought has completely changed how I'm going to be able to do them. Where so far all the episodes have been recorded in exactly the same place.
Yeah.
But I was starting to think, well, hang on a minute. People are coming back to the office. I don't want an audience. And I know what my team are like. They're going to be in the background doing this. It's not like the BBC
noise cancelling headphones now.
It's just knowing they're there. That would be enough.
Okay.
So I thought, well, at least if I've got a proper tripod rather than this little thing that's custom made for the handheld camera, it means that I can move anywhere. Where at the moment that little tripod is sitting on top of a biscuit tin, sitting on top of the rack in the corner of our support department. So if I'm going to position it somewhere else, I need a proper tripod. So I think I'm literally starting to look like a media crew with all the carry bags. I've got LED lighting, which I've got one over there to try and reduce the shadow from the overhead lighting. And so I think the kit, if you get the kit right at the beginning, it can make it easier for you.
Okay.
And that even the little tripod, because and at least removing your hands, and the editor had given me this feedback. He said, get a tripod for the camera And then he said, you're quite expressionate with your hands. And if you free them up, that will make you more comfortable. That's probably
Oh,
the,
definitely.
the most.
Body language does play a big part, even on camera. I've seen that myself in the videos. So,
And I'm
um,
not, I don't sit down, I stand up. And as I said to my colleague Charlie, is that when you watch keynote speakers at conferences, those good old days when we could go to a conference, they'll wander up and down the stage. And I've said, this is one of the reasons I've got a wired headset for my phone in my office, because I know if I had a Bluetooth one, I'd be doing exactly that. I'd be wearing the carpet out. So that'll probably be the next thing, as I've been facing what next when there's an office full of people.
yeah.
And so I've decided to convert what will be the last space in the office we would occupy as an office, and I'm going to turn it into a little studio.
Cool. So, final question I've got for you, Christian, is it's really about the effect that videos potentially had on your business. Now, you've only been doing it for 5 months, but have you seen any sort of measurable effects? What effects have maybe happened to you maybe from a business impact? So from revenue potentially, because that's really why we're all here doing
Of
this.
course. No one goes into.
But maybe just from a social side as well. What type of effects have these videos had since you've been publishing them?
Okay, I said to my colleague Charlie, who's my fellow sales guy here, I believe the real opportunity for businesses like ours coming out of lockdown isn't going to be the scramble as we're all fighting over customers that, and there are plenty of them out there that aren't happy with their existing provider. But I think the real opportunity is going to be the businesses that have been tinkering and dabbling with their own IT. They've got an enthusiastic amateur on the team, and one of several things, or a combination thereof, is going to happen. Let's call said person Tom.
Okay.
Tom has either, unfortunately, facing redundancy, and so the business needs to outsource. Or one of Tom's colleagues gets made redundant, so Tom is now busy doing the job he was actually recruited to do. Or maybe Tom struggled doing IT support when not all of his colleagues were meters away, or a combination thereof. And now IT, rather than this convenient thing that's got delegated to Tom in the corner and the business owner doesn't worry about it, all of a sudden it's become really important. It's become something that has risen to the top of the list and is on the top of his desk to deal with. And while in lockdown and here in this office building on my own, my desk phone rang on one afternoon. And it's the managing director of an electronics company not far from where our office is. Mm-hmm. And he introduced himself. He said that he's looking to outsource his IT. He said, one of my electronics engineers is currently doing it in the team, but I think we really need to now evolve out of that. And I asked him how many computers they had, because that was the other detail. I'd said to Charlie, I think probably businesses with 10 to 20-ish users are the ones that this is going to start with. Yeah. And I asked how many computers he's got. And I remember him saying, oh, do you know, that's something I really should know. And I said, I just wanted a ballpark number to try and assess the size of the opportunity. And he said, oh, it's about 20. And then I might add, it turned out to be 34, but that was something else. And then the question you always ask when you get an inquiry, can I ask how you found us? He said, well, do you know, that's the really interesting thing. I can't remember where it was. I think it was LinkedIn. However, I watched one of your videos. And I trying not to start bouncing around my office while on the phone and connected by a wire to my phone with my headset. I asked him, oh, okay, well then you've been watching me. And I said, what episode was it? And he said, there are loads of them. And I said, well, I think at the time there was 6. And I said, which one was it? And he said, oh, it was the one where you were talking about the keyboard and the numlock issue on the laptop. It completely resonated with me because that happened to me last week. And he said, I think it's a genius idea. He said, you're humanizing an industry that a lot of people find intimidating.
Yeah.
And he said, and you've made it entertaining. He said, I'm going to go back and watch them all. He said, you've got a fan in me. And so it just led from there. And albeit we're still waiting to find out, he said they're going to make the decision in August. So literally fingers crossed, because not only just the inquiry has meant that I'm going to keep going. This is not going to be a one-year project. I'm not making a recording studio in the office. This is now permanent. I've conquered my fear of the camera, and now I'm taking it really seriously. But yeah, it's already making a difference. And even if we got one inquiry a year, obviously that wouldn't be a very good marketing activity. But if we got one a year, that would mean it's worth it for that size opportunity. But the ambitions are to try and make sure that we're converting an inquiry once a quarter. And now I'm starting to get creative, not only for topics to cover coming forward, but what else I could turn this medium to.
Excellent. Is there anything else that I've maybe missed to ask, or any mentions you want to give out before we end this interview?
Ned at Metropolis Visual. I'll tell him off. It's such a mouthful to say. He's the guy who's doing the editing, and his feedback in how to make improvements, from the lighting that I bought, the microphone, and constant little tweaks to be able to make improvements as I go. Yeah. I wouldn't have made the progress I've done perhaps in such a small amount of time without him, and all the credit for editing and those jazzy special effects goes to him as well.
Excellent. Okay, well, thanks for being on the show. Just great to have you on the show, and we're going to be watching your videos, Chtistian. So yeah, you've definitely got more fans coming along to watch and see what you're doing.
Well, brilliant. Thank you for inviting me on.
That's okay. Just before we go, another shout out, video marketing for MSPs. There's multiple tips in this book about how to actually track your return on investment if you're doing video. Things like having a vanity domain, little things like that you can learn and hear. That's for just now, folks. We'll catch you in the next episode. Bye.